You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Friday, June 3rd, 2022. Today is also the feast day of many Ugandan martyrs, including St. Charles Lwanga and St. Joseph Maskala. Now, all week, we have been hearing from Kelly from Bird Ministry, talking to us about saints that experienced grief and drawing lessons that we can apply to our own situations as we deal with the loss of loved ones. So we have one more story from a saint today.
Today's saint is Saint Padre Pio. Padre Pio Francesco Forgioni was born to Giuseppe and Grazio Forgioni in the small town of Petrolenzia, Italy, on May 25, 1887. Although the Forgionis were poor in material goods, they were certainly rich in their faith life and in the love of God. Even as a young boy, Francesco had already shown signs of extraordinary gifts of grace. At the age of 5, he dedicated his life to God. From his early childhood, he showed a remarkable recollection of spirit and love for the religious life. His mother described him as a quiet child who from his earliest years loved to go to church and to pray. When Francesco was 15 years old, he was admitted to the novitiate of the Capuchin Order of the Friars Minor in Morcone, Italy. He was admired by his fellow students as well as by his superiors for his exemplary behavior and his deep spirituality. One of the novices stated, "There was something which distinguished him from the other students. Whenever I saw him, he was always humble, recollected, and silent. What struck me most about Brother Pio was his love of prayer." And on August 10, 1910, at the age of 23, Padre Pio was ordained to the priesthood. His parishioners were deeply impressed by his piety, and one by one they began to come to him seeking counsel. For many, even a few moments in his presence proved to be a life-changing experience. As the years passed, pilgrims began to come to him by the thousands from every corner of the world, drawn by the spiritual riches which flowed so freely from his extraordinary ministry. To his spiritual children, he would say, "It seems to me as if Jesus has no other concern but the sanctification of your soul." Padre Pio is understood above all else as a man of prayer. Before he was 30 years old, he had already reached the summit of his spiritual life, known as the unitive way of transforming union with God. He prayed almost continuously. His prayers were usually very simple. He loved to pray the rosary and recommended it to others. To someone who asked him what legacy he wished to leave to his spiritual children, he briefly replied, "My child, the rosary." He had a very special mission to the souls in purgatory and encouraged everyone to pray for them. He used to say, "We must empty purgatory with our prayers." Father Ignacio Daniel, his confessor, director, and beloved friend, said, "One admires in Padre Pio his habitual union with God. When he speaks or is spoken to, we are aware that his heart and mind are not distracted from the thought and sentiments of God." Padre Pio suffered from poor health his entire life, one saying that his health had been declining from the time he was 9 years old. And after his ordination to the priesthood, he remained in his hometown of Palencia and was not separated from his religious community for more than 5 years due to his precarious health. Although the cause of his prolonged and debilitating illnesses remained a mystery to his doctors, Padre Pio did not become discouraged. He offered all of his bodily sufferings to God as a sacrifice for the conversion of souls. He experienced many spiritual sufferings as well. "I am fully convinced that my illness is due to a special permission of God," he said. After his ordination, he wrote a letter to his spiritual director, Father Nardella, in which he asked permission to offer his life as a victim for sinners. He wrote, "For a long time I have felt in myself a need to offer myself to the Lord as a victim for poor sinners and for the souls in purgatory. This desire has been growing continuously in my heart so that it now can become what I would call a strong passion. It seems to me that Jesus wants this." The marks of the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, appeared on Padre Pio's body on Friday, September 20th, 1918, while he was praying before a crucifix and making his thanksgiving after Mass. He was 31 years old and became the first stigmatist priest in the history of the Church. With resignation and serenity, he bore the painful words in his hands, feet, and side for 50 years. Padre Pio was not a man absent of death in his family. Padre Pio was known for hoping for miracles, but sometimes the miracles didn't come. How did he react? The Spanish flu hit Padre Pio's family personally in Petralencia. His own sister and nephew both succumbed to the Spanish flu. His nephew Pellegrino died at the age of 4 on September 22, 1918. Padre Pio's sister Felicita died 3 days later at the age of 29. Both were struck down by this cursed Spanish fevers. According to his sufferings was Padre Pio's anguish in not being able to celebrate their funerals. In a letter to his parents, Padre Pio said he could not go to Palencia because I feel terrible and powerless to undertake this long and arduous journey. In fact, just 6 days earlier, he had received the stigmata on September 17th. After the loss of his sister, Padre Pio's own mother, Peppa, became infected with the H1N1 virus, likely after contact with her daughter. In October 1918, she was in very poor health, and they feared that she might die. Padre Pio asked his spiritual daughters to pray for her recovery. This time their prayers were heard and she did improve. On the other hand, during this period, Padre Pio's family in Palencia suffered 2 more losses. The first was Alfredo, the son of Pellegrina Forgioni, Padre's second sister. He died on October 12, 1918, at 14 months old. 2 years later, Francesco Forgioni, son of Michele, Padre Pio's older brother, died on November 9, 1920, after just turning 9 years old. What was Padre Pio's response to all this death and suffering? This was a theme close to his heart. As he endured untold physical and mental sufferings, including the stigmata, for most of his life, he united his sufferings to the will of God. Here it is important to clarify that the sufferings we endure in the human race was not God's original plan for us. Catechism 4:18 states, "Suffering entered the world only with sin." Catechism 3:11 says that God permits suffering and even sin because he is able, in his power and creativity, to bring good from it. In a letter to his parents after the loss of his sister and nephew, Padre Pio exhorted them to accept the will of God in all circumstances. He wrote, "I exhort you to this resignation to the divine will, and you will find, like me, alleviation of your pain. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Padre Pio did not consider suffering a meaningless burden. On the contrary, he urged those who were bowed down with troubles to bear their pain with patience and resignation. He considered suffering a great privilege and yearned for it himself. In fact, many times he asked the Lord if he might take onto himself the suffering of others.
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be.
My name is Ms. Kelly Bro, co-founder of Bird Ministries. Bird Ministries serves ordinary families who have been given an extraordinary cross to carry called child loss. We partner with dioceses and parishes to provide Catholic programs, training, pathways to implementation, and ongoing formation. This allows the Church to mentor and serve families of child loss. If you would like to find out more information about our organization, please reach out to us at hello@redbird.love or on our website at redbird.love.
This show is a production of the Spoke Street Media Podcast Network. For more great podcasts, visit spokestreet.com.